in front of us, Dr. John T and Chloe T. The topic today is the therapeutic use of cannabis and recent restrictions. John and Chloe are here to answer questions about anything about cannabis and health, because they're doctor-type people, but also about, in particular, some recent restrictions on access. So questions will be, there'll be a short presentation, and then we'll have some time for questions towards the end. So, John and Chloe, over to you guys.
Thank you very much. So, yes, thank you for taking the time to come and have a chat with us this afternoon. And my name's Dr. John Tay. This is my amazing wife, Chloe Tay. And together we run Plant Med Cannabis Clinics, which is based in Brisbane, Australia. And Chloe's the business brains behind the whole outfit, and really she's been in medical cannabis for a long time. And my journey myself personally started back at the end of 2016 when a friend of ours came to see us, a young lady, 21 years old, and on her 21st birthday she had a really bad headache, and so bad that they called an ambulance, and within 24 hours, she was in brain surgery, having a tumour removed from her head. And she came to us just after she'd got out of hospital for that, really confused. What do I do? Where do I go? The doctor said, I haven't got very much long to live. And that we lived near Nimbin, and we knew that we could get medicinal cannabis here. And I'd been learning about that for a while, and Chloe had been involved in that space for a long time. And we said, we can help you out, we can direct you and help you out what to do. And so we came here and we got us some medicine from Nimbin, and that started the journey. And then within 6 months of that, medicinal cannabis became legalised in Australia. And today's talk is about, the recent regulatory changes and who can access cannabis, essentially. And so Nikki was the name of this girl, was the first person I ever submitted an application to the government to get medicinal cannabis. And I thought that'd be a no-brainer, right? This young lady, she's got a brain tumour, she's considered palliative, she's going to die, probably. Should be no problem. But because I didn't have the right words in my application, just a small phrase of words, it was rejected, because I was saying I want to help this person to be cured from cancer, essentially, and my naivety. That's not allowed in Australia. We are allowed only to treat people for things that there's proof for. And the proof in this situation is for symptomatic relief. So I worked it out with a little bit of help from some industry colleagues. And I said, we have to apply for the symptomatic relief of the problem she's having. So the fact that she's got nausea and vomiting from chemo, the fact that she's in pain, the fact that she's having seizures, the fact that she's recovering from all these procedures and cancer. And so we did eventually get her across the line, and she did pass in the end. But it was by going through this process that I promised to myself that I would make sure that I did medical cannabis. Thank you.
So that journey was 8 years ago now, and we've seen a lot of the medicinal cannabis space develop, grow, and even aspects of it decline. So we're here today to talk about some of the recent changes, but also most importantly, what I do tend to find is the main process of change is really what is put in the media around medicinal cannabis. So while there is changes that have taken place, a lot of changes haven't changed in regards to access, in regards to the patient groups that can access medicinal cannabis, but there is a lot of myth out there within the space of the medical community that this is a medication that can only be accessed in very particular avenues. The truth is that anyone who is having side effects to a medication or is not responding to treatment that they are undergoing can access medicinal cannabis. It can't be a frontline medication, but you just have to prove that you have tried medications or treatments in the past in relation to your condition. What we have seen a lot of, though, in the last few months is restrictions around Veterans Affairs, around veterans being able to access medicinal cannabis, and some changes that are taking place there. The only consideration that the DVA is making at this point in time is to meeting their budget for that department. There isn't many considerations being made towards veterans, and that's my personal opinion. But nonetheless, these changes have been made, and we do need to now find ways around them for our veteran community. So I'll let Dr. Tay talk about that a little bit more in regards to some of the restrictions that have taken place.
Yeah, I mean, this is the main point of the topic, and we'll take questions on anything, you know. We're not going to talk for a long time. We haven't written anything down. I made you a slide deck, but we can answer any question you have. In terms of the vets recently, up until now, a veteran could apply for funding for the medicinal cannabis, and once they got their funding, the government would happily pay for it at whatever discretion of the doctors prescribing. And that's been going on quite well, and I've personally got multiple DVA patients who are doing great. But the recent changes by the DVA haven't really been done in consultation with any medical practitioners or anyone in the industry. It's kind of a top-down arbitrary decision, and they've made decisions that are exactly like this. A maximum percentage of THC of 25% to be prescribed, a maximum volume of dried herb cannabis of 2 grams per day to be prescribed, and the medicine must now be approved by a specialist. And I think that's where the big falling down occurs. So GPs never used to be considered specialists, and they are now considered specialists by the DVA, which is a good thing. So that means that does open up a little bit. But the majority of people will still need specialist support, being their pain specialist, orthopedic surgeon, etc. And unfortunately, these people are very unknowledgeable about cannabis and probably unwilling to support someone for a medicine that they don't know anything about, which is probably fair enough too, I must add. As a result, all of my DVA patients, because I'm not a GP, I'm not a specialist in orthopedics or pain specialty or anything. I'm a cannabis medicine specialist, but that's not accepted as a specialty by the DVA. So as a result, all of my patients are now having to find other doctors to treat them despite me having excellent results with them. And it's very problematic for the patients. You know, there's a lot of stress already. They've finally got their treatment protocol sorted. Now they've got to change it all. And this in itself makes massive stress on patients who are very close and to, you know, mental instability, and a lot of times anyway from their PTSD and traumas that have happened to them. And to have these massive changes dumped on them, to have their medicine treatment just arbitrarily and completely changed out of the blue is really harsh. And I do know there's a lot of backlash from the DVA community. They're unable to get serviced in a timely manner because the clinics that are willing to service them have just suddenly been overrun. I mean, here's all of our DVA patients have them, you know, and everyone's done that. So it's really not a good situation, and the DVA patients really are being disadvantaged. And there's going to be a lot of roll-on from that. There's going to be negative health consequences from that. People are going to kill themselves from this. And it's just another stress that our veterans don't need. I think it's done primarily, as Chloe mentioned, for budgetary reasons. You know, it's a medicine that works. A lot of people are starting to use it. It's getting out of hand in terms of their budget that allowed for it. The DVA hasn't got the employees to back up the admin that they've asked to be done. So it's a catch-22 for them. So they've had to make these rules to make it work. But saying that, I would like to say that, you know, cannabis access in Australia medically is amazing. And yes, we do have regulations, and yes, we do have the government looking over our shoulder at what we do. But in reality, as a doctor, as a clinician, I can treat anyone in this room with any form of cannabis in any way I see fit. The risk is on me, and that's the problem. And we've seen a lot of great cannabis doctors leave the cannabis space because they're not willing to put themselves out there and take that risk. They're not willing to take the risk for their family, and I can understand that. And the pressures that's put on myself and my family has been great as well. But I feel compelled to do it. Most people don't. And that's a big stumbling block, I think, in Australia. But the fact is, the real rules, and this is the positive side of things, the real rules about accessing cannabis is exactly as Chloe said. It just can't be a first-line treatment. So if you've had a Panadol and you have a sore knee, that's enough, you know. If you've had any medications that have made you really sick, like opiates, and you haven't been able to continue them and your pain's still there, that's enough. So it is really, really open in that sense. Having it open is great, and I think it's important to have medical supervision. I understand we're in Nimbin, and a lot of people just want straight access, and I'm all for self-growing and recreational access for people as well. But I also think, you know, when it's used medically, it is important there is some oversight so people don't harm themselves. They may not know what to do, you know. In this room, we're preaching to the converted, you know. Everyone here is fairly educated. Even the ones that don't think they are actually very educated about cannabis. The majority of our patients are completely cannabis naive. They would never seen cannabis in a flower form. They might have only heard about cannabis, you know, through society. So we're in a good spot. You know, we're able to help a lot of people, and the medicine is amazing. In fact, the sentiment, I can see the smiling faces in here, the sentiment from the public is, let's go, this is really good. It's helping me get off drugs, and we see that all the time. We get off 50% or 100% of people's medications sometimes, you know. We're getting results with people. In medicine, if you get a 30% success rate, you're like, whoa, I'm just smashing that. I haven't even done the numbers, but I reckon we're sitting at 80%, you know, like majority of people that come through our clinic get a good result. Small amount of people don't for whatever reason. It's not for everyone. But as a practicing medical doctor, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I keep pinching myself saying, am I just fluking it? No, it's real. So this medicine is real. I'm nattering on. I'll make one more point. I'll swing to Chloe. I think what's important is that we can access this medicine. You can go out there and buy it right now. If you want to access it medically, you can come to see me and get some supervision. You can go down the road here and get your own medical cannabis in the form of oils, suppositories, whatever you like. But we want to use this medicine safely. And where I think medical cannabis comes in is that having someone who knows about how to use the medicine, how it can interact with your other medicines, because what people don't realize is CBD in particular affects a whole suite of your liver enzymes that break down basically every other drug you take, break down alcohol, break down cannabis, break down toxins in our body. And if you have too much CBD, you can impair that. So if you're taking a whole bunch of drugs already and you whack in 100 and 200 milligrams of CBD a day, you might be hurting yourself, you might harm yourself. Also, the other flip side of that is you need CBD. If you just go out there and use heaps of THC, you're going to get an effect, yes. You're going to get stoned, yes. But if you're trying to cure a medical condition, you need the CBD to balance it for the physiological reasons, but more importantly, and we see this in the clinic a lot, is mental health. And CBD, the fancy words are negative allosteric modulator of THC at the cannabis 1 receptor. Means it partially blocks THC from binding, which means it reduces the anxiety that gets formed from strong pot. And if that isn't balanced well, you can end up having mental health conditions like anxiety, paranoia, or even psychosis. And if you have got mental health in your family like schizophrenia or bipolar, there's a good chance that you can bring that out and have a full-blown episode or bring it out for the first time. So mental health is really important. And so this is an amazing drug. It's good recreationally, it's good medically. It can heal people amazingly well, but it can also harm people. So it's really important that we know what we're doing, and even within an educated community like this, you know, and a lot of people are self-healing themselves, treating themselves with cannabis, and I'm all for that. Most people aren't game enough to do that, but if you're game enough to do that, great, you go and do it. Do it well, do a little bit of education for yourself, and realise that you need to balance your THC and your CBD. So you keep up here nice and tight. You also get amazing responses in your body. So CBD is a very powerful anti-inflammatory medicine. So it's going to prevent that inflammatory disease and damage to your DNA and all those inflammatory processes that happen as we get older. It's neuroprotective. It protects your brain, literally, against oxidative damage. It's an antioxidant as well. So it's stopping damage to your telomeres, which is aging. It's balancing your THC. It's increasing the duration of action of THC in your body, because one particular enzyme in your liver that breaks down THC is slowed down with CBD. So it literally means if you have a smoke, it'll last longer in your body. You're not going to get quite the immediate hit initially that people search for from a bong or something like that, but you'll get a longer duration of action. The other thing that I think about medically is how do we use it and what happens after you put it in your body, and how do you put it in your body, as to how long it lasts in your body, the level in your blood, where it's targeting. So like, I think about cannabis slightly differently. I've got a full appreciation of recreational cannabis, don't worry. But I think about it from a medical sense, in this hand, very differently. I'm thinking about plasma levels. I'm thinking about keeping your plasma levels at the right level. I'm thinking about keeping side effects at a minimum. The other amazing thing from CBD is it actually allows you to increase your THC dose. In some situations, you need very, very strong THC dosing. If you're treating yourself with cancer, for instance, and you have a remission intent, you want to take your dosing very high. Some people will be aiming at 1,000 milligrams a day of THC. If most people have 1,000 milligrams a day of THC, there's a pretty good chance they're going to end up in extreme anxiety, paranoia, or even psychosis, or just be asleep for 3 days, have a bad time, okay? When you increase your CBD in balance with your THC, and you do that increase slowly, I could take anyone in this room to 2 grams a day of THC. It might take me a while, but we could get you there to that level safely with a minimal of impairment. You would still be impaired. You'd know you're affected at that sort of dose, of course. But if we did that straight away without the right preparation, you'd be having a really, really bad outcome. So there's a lot to think about, you know, and I could spill on forever. I'll pass over to Chloe. But if there's anyone got some questions brewing, we love questions, okay? So, and that'll help us direct our conversation.
Lovely. So before we hand over to questions, one thing I do want to say, and what I've observed in the last year, is watch what the media is telling us about medicinal cannabis. Watch what we are being told. Last year, I spent all year travelling around Australia speaking one-on-one to GPs and specialists, Australia-wide. That took me to 15,000 doctors in person. The one thing that I was told routinely from every single state in this country is, I'm never getting into cannabis because of the Cannabis Task Force. Now, the Cannabis Task Force, we haven't heard of it or seen it since its creation. There was one person who, and this is my personal experience, I don't know about the rest of the people in the industry, but there was a representative at United in Compassion a couple of years ago. There was a large component of media push about our Cannabis Task Force, and what it has done is create a massive amount of fear within our GP population, who have now major hesitancy of coming into this space. So we really need to question the media that we are being given. Is it for the benefit of the people and the patients that could possibly be considering this treatment? Or is the media for the benefit of corralling and controlling the practitioners that are thinking of coming into this space? So when we see media, just don't buy it for what it is. Talk to the people who are in the field and actually hands-on on the ground. I do really feel in the last couple of years that a lot of our negative media, it's not targeted towards the patient pools. It's not targeted towards proactive people trying to find a solution for their illness. It's targeted towards the doctors and the people who have the authoritative aspect of this treatment to make them second guess whether or not this is the right decision for them and their families. And I have to say on the front line that the doctors in this space have massive regulatory oversight beyond what is normal. We have doctors that now have to budget a legal floating fund every year to stay prescribing to our patients. We have 6 legal teams to look after my husband's registration, and they are active every single day of the week. So when, as a patient, you do have to understand that there is an incredible amount of risk on the practitioner. The practitioner takes all of the responsibility for the prescribing of the patient, even if that patient hasn't been honest or true to the doctor themselves. So please bear in mind that the doctors in this space, they take a lot of pressure and they take a lot of stress to do what they do every day, and they have to make the decisions they do, because at the end of the day, there is no one else responsible for that prescribing than the medical registration that's on the script. So it's a very hard time to be a medical practitioner in this space, and the negative media that is actually out there, I personally feel, while there is some informative aspects, it's not giving the true and honest situation.
Actually, like, yeah, I mean, I love talking with Chloe because she always brings me back on target. I'll go off on a tangent and I get lost in clinical land. But, you know, in terms of what we were just saying there, that negative media that's been coming out, these letters that have been coming out from the psychiatric board, the RACGB, the General Practitioners Board, and colleges, they've been sending out statement letters that haven't been backed by the science. They're saying cannabis is causing psychosis, our ERs are being overrun with mental health problems. But when challenged, where's the evidence for this? Have you got the statistics for this? Nothing has been forthcoming, and still to now. And so, but they just keep putting out these letters and say, oh, so-and-so died because of this. It is literally fear-mongering. And hey, it works.
It's working.
It works. But don't be scared. We can't be scared of that. We're here for our own sovereignty, our own health. When people will come to me and I explain to them about the driving rules and the regulations and all these things, and they get really scared, and I'm like, well, let's bring it back, okay? What's more important? The fact that you can stand up and cook yourself dinner today, or the fact that you might get in trouble if you drive even though you're not impaired, and you haven't had cannabis within 8 hours, and you're definitely not impaired, and the risk that potentially you might get a drug swab when you're going to Coles. Every day, what's the risk? What's more important? And I say to people, look, if it was me, I would catch an Uber, not worry about it, and deal with my health first, so then I can deal with the rest of my life. I think health is the most important priority.
Yeah. And I also think there's a massive push at the moment. The numbers are being seen. The patients that have converted to medicinal cannabis, the drugs that have been down titrated. You can't tell me that any data centre in a pharmaceutical establishment is not seeing sales of particular medications dropping. When we did our 15,000 GPs last year, I took two amazing women who were never from cannabis. They're from business development, and they've been trained specifically in cannabis medicines, and I took them right around Australia. Every time we came in to set up at a different state, there was a distributed newspaper, a medical newspaper, on every single table's desk, and it always had an entire front page negative medicinal cannabis article, 3 pages in length. So every doctor-led specialist conference I went to was being handed out these medical newspapers, and every single one of those for the entire 12 months of the circuit was a negative medicinal cannabis campaign. There is an active approach from within to make sure that the majority of the media going out in this space is negative. And blazon, AI has analysed over 65,000 studies. It confirms that there is not a single therapeutic benefit towards cannabis. These are the types of topics that are on these magazines. Now, my team show up. We're being looked at sideways from all of the other pharmaceutical representatives within that space. We're having trouble making conversation before the doctors enter the room, and people are quite literally coming up, other medical reps, and judging us based on cannabis. We open the doors. Our stall is so busy, I need 4 people on the stall. The doctors are at our stall because they're being pushed by their patient pool to know more and to have a solution for them. At the end of the day, the attitude of the rest of the pharmaceutical tables within that building is completely different, because the people power is pushing the doctors towards this medication, whether they like it or not. So from people within this space, this is a hard slog, and it's not getting any easier. While we are getting further within the medical community, the actual judgments deep down, they are still only changing from the bottom up. They are not changing from the top down. So every single one of us needs to push. We need to have the conversation. When someone says something negative about cannabis, we need to challenge that belief, because that belief is quite often propaganda, not an experienced belief within that person themselves. So the only way that this is going to work is if we keep doing things like this, where we come together, we educate ourselves, we understand, and we go back and we hold space and have that difficult conversation with the doctor. Some of the conversations we had last year, my poor girls, because it was released when we had the psychosis death, and we were out on a main campaign, it was a very, very hard slog for these women to bring these people back round to understanding that actually CBD and THC are the yin and the yang of the cannabis plant. The reason we're having issues is we're only working with one aspect of the energetic collective. So when we took that negative media and said, okay, we understand that there's some side effects, we've had a very negative situation. Did you know that CBD mitigates all side effects and brain changes associated with THC? No, I didn't. The education has not been there. The education has not come from the governing bodies that are still trying to clamp down on the medical practitioners within this space. So we need to keep doing things like this every single day and educating ourselves. And at the very end, when you read that media, read between the lines of the media and then go and speak to people within the space, because it's not all accurate and it's not all true.
Yeah, well spoken.
Thank you, John and Chloe. I think we're up for questions.
Questions,
perhaps.
let's go for
Question
it.
time.
Let's do questions.
Look,
There's one right here, let's take it.
Reminder that before you put your hand up, please, we'll get a microphone to you. There's a person down the front who had their hand up very, very early in the process. Well done, sir. One question, and then if there's another question, we'll get a mic to you. So hands up, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Mario. I'm a GP from Mullumbimby. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for all the work you guys are bringing through the space as well. In Mullumbimby, I've just recently opened up the first clinic in Mullum for cannabis prescribing. I've been
Thank you.
prescribing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We need more of you. Thank you very much.
And I've been prescribing for the last 2 years, and even that space I've been exploring for a long time. What I've found is a lot of administrative work is involved in prescribing cannabis. But not only that, but there's also, as an authorised prescriber, there's a big cost involved and a lot of paperwork to maintain that authority of prescribing, which I don't think a lot of the general population actually understands how much paperwork's involved backhand to keep supplying that medicine to
We have, I think, about 25 staff or 3.5 full-time doctors.
Yeah.
So,
And 1/3 of that is staff for regulatory red tape and basically covering all aspects for when, you know, we have those questions or those moments where we need to actually present that data. It's heavy.
It is, and I'm also working on these kind of systems with GPs as well. What I'm curious about is that I've noticed a lot recently, a lot of new clients have been coming my way from a lot of different practitioners that have been banned or stopped from prescribing cannabis. But I don't actually understand what's been happening on the back end of that conversation. I'm really curious if you can speak to that as well.
oh my God, it's yeah.
It's a jungle out there.
Yeah, it's really bad.
I don't think it's actually hard to prescribe cannabis. I don't
No,
think
it's not hard to
it's not.
prescribe.
Any doctor can prescribe cannabis. So you can just put in the one-off application per patient, per medicine, or you can do, as Dr. Mario has done, got an authorised prescriber, as I've done as well, and that means you can write prescriptions, but you have to tally them all and report in 6 monthly to 2 different bodies every 6
pay
months.
$1,500 every 2 years.
Yeah, and you have to pay to maintain that, and it's onerous and expensive. So in the last couple of years, there's just been a lot of regulatory crackdown, and I think that's the way that the powers that be want to slow things down, because it's just going too fast. It was the growth in the industry was very big in the first few years. It's still very quick, you know. So a lot of people in New South Wales got targeted for not checking the New South Wales SAFE script, which is all doctors are able to access the S8, the poisons medicine database, and all cannabis, all opiates is registered on that. And every time you prescribe it, you have to actually check that database to make sure that they're not taking too many other things or there's no problems. You know, so, and they introduced this database about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, but no one really checks it, you know, because it was a new thing. No one really checked it. And so a whole bunch of people in New South Wales essentially got targeted via that pathway. And so you haven't been checking this database enough. And then the pharmacy board in New South Wales has a lot of power in New South Wales, and they were just directly targeting people and getting them deregistered essentially, by bypassing ARPA and the TJ and all that sort of thing. So there was a good colleague, friend of mine from Coffs Harbour, who was actually he was the president of the College of Cannabis Clinicians in Australia at the time, and got targeted. And rather than, you know, he just tapped out, you know, so we lost him straight away. He sent me all his patients. And then we have in Australia a anonymous complaint system, which is great, right? So we can complain about medical practitioners or anyone in Australia anonymously through fair trading or through the Health Ombudsman in Queensland or through the ARPA, the Medical Registration Board. And you can put in an anonymous complaint, and then it's up to the doctor to defend themselves against that, and that's all there is to it. So in your career as a medical doctor, you might get one of those in 50 years. You know, you might have one or two if you're unlucky. Really unlucky, you have two. To put it in perspective, I've had about 12 of those in the last 7 years. And
one after the other.
One after the other, consistently, sometimes 2, 3 going at a time. Not because I've done anything wrong, because some other person has thought that, in their opinion, I've done something wrong and put in an anonymous complaint. But I have to then defend against that. I have to spend money on lawyers, because if you don't get lawyers involved, you'll just go down, you know. So that's a lot of stress on someone. That's also a lot of money. If I wasn't in that fortunate enough position that my business had gotten to a point where I could afford to defend myself, I would have tapped out too, because I wouldn't have had the money. I would be too scared about my family not being fed, you know. So there's a lot of regulatory insight. There's overview and overburden. And I think, you know, there is reasons that this is happening as well, because there's a lot of unscrupulous people in the space, or just unknowledgeable maybe, or stupid, I don't know. Greedy, probably, who are, you know, pumping out a lot of flower prescriptions, essentially getting a cut on all that, and really aiming just to get as much through as possible. And that's not medicine. That's not even good drug dealing. I don't know what that is. It's bad, you know. And that's what's happening. And so then people are having some mental health problems, and they do end up in mental health wards because people aren't balancing their THC and CBD, and they're giving them too much. So there is problems. But then we get the societal targeting as well. So then we get the health boards and the papers targeting these really minority of cases. You know, there's really not many people that are having bad, even psychoses or mental health effects. The side effect profile of cannabis is really, really good. You know, it's less than it's very, very low, very, very low side effect profile. So the number of good stories is almost endless, but we don't focus on these in society and the media. So that puts more pressure on, and that puts pressure on public safety, and it's just this self-reinforcing cycle. But essentially, they're trying to slow it down, and the bottleneck is the doctors. So it's brave people like yourself actually willing to step up and use this medicine well and take all the regulatory burden, even though it's expensive, you know, because you want to do it. So that's what we need. We need more of yourself working in this space. But there has been a lot of pressure, and it's coming from the top down.
It is. And I must say, some of the larger clinics who look at hiring large amounts of doctors have noticed this trend, and they are actively seeking medical practitioners not governed by New South Wales Health, that do not fall under New South Wales Health requirements. So a lot of larger clinics, knowing the focus that has been put in New South Wales in particular on the prescribing practitioners, are now looking for provider numbers registered in other states where they fall under other health regulations. And that's one thing I know particularly is taking place right now. And I do understand why, because at the end of the day, these other states have a little bit more of an open-minded attitude, health department to doctor or to medical clinic, than what may be being displayed within New South Wales currently. At the end of the day, all I can say is immaculate clinical notes with an AI oversight. I would also suggest, in particular, if you had the ability to run through the SASB system in the initial phases.
I was going to mention that same thing. It mitigates the risk when you do SASB.
Mitigates the risk, but also there's a little bit less paperwork for you, actually, if you're prescribing on a SAS as opposed to a MAP.
More timely aspect of the administration.
And so that in itself, and, you know, a really good... John and I had to work together. If it was either of us running this business right now, it would not be operational. He would not have a medical registration. You need someone in your practice that has your back. They're looking for all of the blind spots, all of the red flags, and all of the little things that could go wrong. You need that person, that security dog that's looking out for the risk and mitigating risk before it arises.
Because you get under pressure. You're under time pressure. You got a lot of patients, and you got all the extra forms you need to fill out and all the extra stuff you got to do. So in one area where I have stumbled, you know, it caused me a bit of trouble, was I wasn't writing detailed enough notes, and you've really got to go over the top. So now I've employed AI to help me do that, and it's gold. It's gold, you know, like I've got the most verbose notes now that it's got to stand up in the court. That's what it's got to stand up.
Thank you.
And
And-
just the AI article you mentioned, yep, it's come through my doors through the other doctors in the clinics trying to say
Exactly.
about cannabis
And, you know,
interesting
these women, I've
propaganda.
really got to thank them for what they did, because they stood there and they took we actually got abused. We stood there and took abuse from doctors, some of them spitting at us, how dare you even be here, and to then turn around, re-educate them and send them back out with our brochure and referral pad. And we have literally, in 3 seconds, changed every single belief system they've had. So, you know, people like us have to keep showing up. But at the end of the day, just imagine your administration support staff are actually your biggest asset. Train them in what you need, train them in red flags, train them in behavioural patterns that you need to identify early, train them in abusive phone conversations. They are all red flags to you. You have to imagine, if you're the authority for this patient's treatment, if they are abusing you and demanding from you, how do they treat everyone else within society? So use your administration team to bring to you, hey doc, this one's flagged. This one's flagged before they walk through the door. So your admin team will be there to protect you if they're trained right and they understand that the number one job they have is to protect your registration over customer service.
And for people that are going to go see their GP and engage them after this, come and grab one of these flyers each year. This is about an education platform I've created called Plant Ed, and it's for doctors. So you can take one of those, give it to your doctor and say, hey, if you can't do it, learn about it, or maybe just call these guys, you know. But so there's some resources there for you. Next question, we should move
Thanks
on.
for that. There's a one down the front. Thank you.
Yes, hello. I've listened to you before and I just really admire everything that you're doing, and I talk about you all the time to
Thank
people
you.
that I see. But I had more than 3 questions, so maybe I should just have one and catch you afterwards. I don't
That's
want to
good
be
sharing.
selfish.
do
That's
the
good
most
sharing,
important
yeah.
one.
Is that
yeah,
okay?
most important one.
I'm not sure which is the most important, but I guess I am intrigued with the use of whether it's in mainstream prescription THCA to THC, and is it a valid prescription or is it just in the underworld of cannabis?
So THCA, or the acidic form of cannabis, is essentially raw cannabis, non-decarboxylated. So if you eat or consume THCA, you're not going to get a high feeling. It does have good benefits, lots of good benefits, anti-inflammatory effects, you know, and supporting your endocannabinoid system, but it's not going to have the direct potency of effect as THC.
Yep.
So to be activated, we need to decarboxylate, which involves heating of some energy being put in and removing one of the hydrogens, so it locks into your cannabis receptors properly. It's not really sold in the medical market because its shelf life is not very stable. So because it'll start to become THC just by sitting there. If you leave it just sitting there, it'll start at 1% THC and end up 5%,
Right.
8% over time. So we can't maintain the stability, so it's not able to really be dispensed. They do have THCA here in Nimbin, and you know, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that THCA is good for epilepsy and autism in children. Maybe that's because of what they were using here, or maybe because there was other stuff in it. We're not 100% certain. But it's one of those things where if you've got access to it, can't see any harm in using it at all. I think it's going to be beneficial. But for your direct symptomatic relief of problems, if you're looking for the pain relieving effects or the anti-cancer effects of THC, or the sleep effects, you know, you probably want to use something which has been decarboxylated.
Yeah. I've just seen it work for people who've never been introduced to cannabis before and haven't been smokers, as a good way of sort of easing into it without getting any psychoactive effects, but actually having better
That's
pain
right.
management than CBD.
It's very, very beneficial for you. I've got one patient who comes here still to get her THCA.
Yeah.
And uses some other form from us, but she doesn't use the THC or the CBD from us. She uses one product, but she uses the THCA from Nimbin because it works, and she's been getting it from the same person forever. Whether it's just THCA or not, I don't know, but it works for her, so we just continue. But yeah, it's totally valid.
Yep. I'll catch you for a couple other
No
questions,
worries,
so I'm
yeah,
not too
no problem.
greedy. Thank you very much.
No problem.
There's a question on the side.
Yeah, thank you for your work. Look, my issue, I know, is not as serious as many you've been talking about, but I'm 66 years old, and over the last 6 to 12 months, I've gone from feeling really fit and strong to having arthritis in the knees and hips, which is really disappointing because I've been working on my fitness and that sort of thing. I just wondered, what is your experience with getting help for arthritis from the products?
You're in the right spot, you know. Even if you're not really into high levels of THC, I think with what you're describing, it's an inflammatory condition, it's relatively mild, it's wearing out, it's osteoarthritis. I mean, you know, I do say one of the colloquial phrases I use with patients is it's like we like to oil you from the inside. So, you know, CBD oil, I would, you know, start with you. Even if you had never smoked cannabis before, I would start with a full spectrum CBD product, maybe 1 to 2% THC in there, very low amount. Use that regularly, twice a day at least. If it was 100 milligrams per mil, I'd have at least half a mil or maybe a mil twice a day, so 50 to 100 milligrams of CBD twice a day. And after about 3 to 4 weeks, you'll probably find that those achy pains will start to ease a bit more. What else I would do would be add in small amounts of THC where you need them. So if you're having any trouble sleeping, I'd add in a little bit of THC an hour before bed, making sure it's well balanced with your CBD. That could be in the form of an oil or a gummy or an inhaled product. And then if you had periods in the day where your pain was a bit more flary, you could use a short-acting inhaled product, a vaporizer or a smoked cannabis, just to get on top of that short bit of pain. And then your baseline will be CBD. Will probably take care of the most of it for you, you know. So you could go down to the hemp embassy there and just get yourself a nice full spectrum CBD, a squirt twice a day, and I reckon you'll be feeling good. And what's also going to be happening there, you're going to get the anti-inflammatory effect, but really importantly, you're going to be supporting your natural cannabis system. And you're going to be keeping your own cannabinoids in circulation just that little bit longer. So they're more able to help you just that little bit longer. So you get a percentage improvement.
Yeah, it would be great to get that word out more because, I mean, everyone my age is starting to feel it, and it's really a bit depressing because we've got the time now to work on our fitness and be in the bushwalking clubs and all that sort of thing.
That's it.
Yeah, so I'm very hopeful. Thank you.
Yeah, well, check out that Plant Ed site. Come get a flyer, and there's a site, part of the site which is open to the public as well. It's free, and there's a lot of great information on supporting your endocannabinoid system through nutrition, and how the basic cannabis medicines will be working in your situation. But very, very common part of practice. A lot of people in a similar situation, and it works well.
I think we have a question down the front.
Yes, sure.
Hi there, my name's Kiara. So my question is, as GPs and doctors in general are starting to look into prescribing cannabis and different cannabis products, do you think it's going to open a space for GPs to look at the benefits of other medicinal herbs and plants? And do you think that that could happen in the pharmaceutical industry in general?
I should start. It's a good question. Again, any other medicinal plant is going to come from the patient up. I've spent too much time within these regulatory bodies and to trust or believe that these type of movements are going to come from the top down. It's going to come from us out here campaigning, experimenting for those who are game enough to do so, and we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to push and push and push, just like we did with cannabis, to make those changes. I don't personally foresee the pharmaceutical model working for any form of plant-based medicine. We're trying to put a round peg into a square hole, and I'm just going to say it, but pharmaceutical industry, it's a business. They make money off selling medications that don't always cure you. So if we're talking about medications that have an incredibly high strike rate for mental health or anything in general, I personally feel, and this is my own personal judgment, that it will not be picked up and run with from companies that are already making billions of dollars in human suffering.
And you can't patent a plant. So you legally can't patent cannabis, you can't patent rosemary, you can't patent salvia, you can't patent a plant. So as a result, you can't guarantee you're going to make money out of it, because if you make a product, someone can copy it straight away. That's how the whole pharmaceutical industry works, on exclusivity. So you get your drug in, you make a patent, you've got exclusivity for 5 years where you make all your money, then it goes generic, and that's where you get your generic brands in the pharmacy. So in the end, the simple answer is no, because not only are you dealing with that, you're dealing with you take 1% of the most conservative people in your society, and then you take 1% of that are actually willing to actually think about prescribing. So you do very, very risk-averse group of people. So it's unlikely to happen. And that's why the way we work on SASB system now for cannabis is for those drugs. So if you wanted to bring in cart or something from overseas to chew, you can do that through the SAS-A system and import those medicines in, but the doctor has to do that for you. So once again, as Chloe said, it'd be from the patient up. If you wanted your doctor to get your medicine legally that you knew you could get, it wasn't illegal in Australia, they could do that for you if they were willing. Because it's a lot of paperwork, for one patient. And, it's unlikely, yeah.
I think there's another question over the side. Is that right?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, that's a bit hard to see with the light in our eyes up here. So back down to the front and then the person at the back. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So I grabbed it.
Sorry, go again.
So I just remember at your last talk, you were talking about beta-caryophyllene and terpenes and adding them to inhalers and the effects on COPD and things. Yeah. And I was just wondering, is that really the results you're still getting, and are you using any other terpenes?
The main terpene I add externally outside of the cannabis plant is caryophyllene. I do it as an oil because it's cheap and you get a lot stronger effect out of it. Beta-caryophyllene is an interesting terpene because it actually physically binds to your cannabis 2 receptors and increases the anti-inflammatory effect. And that's something that even CBD doesn't actually do. CBD adjusts them, but it doesn't bind in. This beta-caryophyllene does, and that's having a direct effect on your modulation of your endocannabinoid system. I tend not to really add in extra terpenes isolated too much outside of that, but make the selections within the products, and because I know what's in those products. So that's where you're making your selections between your more indica versus more sativa or hybrid flowers, depending on the time of day and activity you want the person to have. So I might just say to the patient, oh, that's your day one, that's your night one. But in my mind, I'm thinking, that's your night one because it's got myrcene, it's got linalool, it's got a high level of caryophyllene, it's going to be better for your pain relief, it's going to help you sleep, and it's give you muscle relaxation. And that's your day one because it's got limonene, it's got pinene, it's still got some myrcene, so you're still going to get pain relief. It's got a little bit of caryophyllene, but you're not going to be sedated. So that's why I've chosen that one. So I'm choosing those, I am thinking about those concepts, but I'm not adding them in separately. And I'm a bit of like, a naturalist or a purist in that sense, because there are a lot of companies out there that make their own terpene profiles. Can I look at these terpene profiles and I'm like, that's a lot of that particular terpene. How do they, that can't be natural. And I find out and it's not. They've mixed it in that certain way because you can mix them all in any ratio you want. But what I've found is that people over-terpene things. I get some of these vaporizer cartridges I've had, or gummies as well, which have just been over-terpened, and it feels unnatural when you use them. It might taste okay, but it's got like a really strong effect because terpenes are really volatile substances and you only need very small amounts of them. It's like putting in too much, you can't take it out when you put too much of an ingredient into a food. You put too much salt in, you can't get it out again. And it's the same with the terpenes. So yeah, I do think about them, but I don't specifically add them in. Saying that, there's specific ones which are quite commonly boosted a little bit, and minor cannabinoids as well. So in particular, I'm thinking of like CBN and CBG, which are minor cannabinoids, and CBN is great for sleeping. It's more of what you get out of an aged cannabis. So in hashish or something, you'll get a lot more of this CBN, and it gives you a more, still psychoactive, not quite as strong, but a lot more calming in its effect. And CBG is, better for pain relief without sedation in the day. So you'll find that these are often added into the products which we're able to prescribe. So rather than adding them separately, because it adds separate costs as well, I'll pick the patient what they need.
Yep. Oh, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you. I think that might be all the questions.
Anyone else? Are we all good?
Thank you. I think that's great. Look, once again, thank you to Dr. John T and Chloe T for that fantastic presentation. Round of applause, come on.
Thank you.
You know what to do.
Thank you.
So We've got some brochures here explaining the endocannabinoid
Yes,
system.
information down the front.
So the brochures for the doctors, just shove that in front of your doc's face. We've got plant education, so if you want to know more about medical properties as a patient, or there is a gated CPD point section for all doctors
So
as
you
well.
can give them both to your doctors?
We run a medical community. Dr. Tay talks with the community monthly?
Last Thursday of every
Last
month?
Thursday of every month. We do grand rounds. You can bring your complex cases in and chat about those.
So,
And reach out, if doctor to doctor, reach out to Dr. Tay if you have any questions.
Put them in front of your doctor, you know, and if they don't want to do it, they'll send you to us and we'll fix you up.
Yep.
But, you know, they might just be able to do it and they might start to help a lot of other people. So we'll hang around and take some questions and have a chat to anyone as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.